The chair recognizes the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Brooks, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, Benjamin Franklin advised, quote, "When you run in debt, you give to another power over your liberty," end quote. Washington is in the middle of an epic battle between elected officials who, on the one hand, are financially responsible, have the understanding and backbone needed to prevent an American bankruptcy, heed the wisdom of founding father Benjamin Franklin, and fight out-of-control debt that threatens our liberty. And those elected officials who, on the other hand, are financially irresponsible and are too weak to resist spending money America does not have, has to borrow to get, and can't afford to pay back. This week, Congress faces yet another last-second debt deal, negotiated in secret, sprung at the last moment, that fails the American people by not fixing the cause of the debt ceiling problem, out-of-control deficits. Earlier this year, America's Comptroller General and the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office warned Congress and President Obama that America's current financial path is, quote, unsustainable, end quote, meaning that America faces a debilitating insolvency and bankruptcy unless we get our financial house in order. The CBO issued two other dire warnings. First, America's debt service costs will increase by roughly $600 billion in 10 years. For perspective, $600 billion is more than what America spends on national defense, which begs the question, where will the money for that additional $600 billion debt payment come from? Second, the CBO warns that by 2025, America will face an unending string of annual trillion-dollar deficits that can only end in a debilitating American insolvency and bankruptcy. Mr. Speaker, economic principles don't care if you are a family, a business, or a country. If you borrow more money than you can pay back, you go bankrupt. There are good and bad ways to raise the debt ceiling. Today's debt bill is bad because it not only fails to restrain America's spending addiction, it makes things worse by increasing spending by $80 billion. I have been in Congress since 2011, when America's debt blew through the $14 trillion mark. Now America's debt is $18 trillion. This debt deal blows America's debt through the $19 trillion mark, meaning America's bank account will soon be $5 trillion weaker than it was in 2011. Rather than fixing America's debt deficit problem while we still have the financial ability to do so, this debt deal kicks the can down the road to 2017, when America will be financially weaker and less able to rise to the financial challenge that threatens us. Mr. Speaker, today's debt bill is akin to a sick patient going to the emergency room and getting pain-killing drugs that makes the patient feel better, yet does nothing to cure the disease that kills him. In the real world, that's medical malpractice. Similarly, today's debt bill that makes America feel good but does nothing to cure our debt disease is governing malpractice. President George Washington advised Congress that, quote, "No pecuniary consideration is more urgent than the regular redemption and discharge of the public debt. On none can delay be more injurious," end quote. George Washington's advice in 1793 is prudent today. Congress and President Obama must balance the budget before America's debt burden spirals out of control, before it is too late to prevent the debilitating insolvency and bankruptcy that awaits us. Mr. Speaker, I exhort Washington to rise to the challenge and be financially responsible when raising the debt ceiling. The first step is to defeat this debt bill that not only fails to fix a time-critical problem, it actually makes America's spending addiction $80 billion worse. America's future as a great nation and world power depends on it. I will vote against this debt deal. I urge my colleagues to be financially responsible, do the same, and insist that the debt ceiling be raised only if we simultaneously fix America's addiction to deficit spending. Today's debt ceiling bill fails that benchmark. It threatens America. It should be defeated. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.